Today, we get to the last team in our series of SEC football schedule previews for 2022. I'm Chris Lee. He's Blake Lovell. That's the Texas A&M Aggies. That's the team we're talking about today. The Aggies open with Sam Houston State and then have pretty much a challenging schedule across the slate. Number 11 in Phil Steele's strength of schedule rankings, 4 true road games, and then that game in Arlington with Arkansas. Very interesting schedule for the Aggies, as is the case with any SEC West team.
Yeah, I feel like we could just copy and paste when it comes to some of these SEC West teams. It's like I know we kind of say the same things on a lot of them, but so much of it is home and away, and we talk about the importance of that. And I think when you look at Texas A&M schedule, it's one where obviously you got to go to Alabama. That I think will be, if not the most anticipated SEC game of the season. It'll be number 1 or number 2 probably. So yeah, I mean that on October 8th going to Tuscaloosa, and that's where too, you talk about how the schedule falls, right? 3 straight SEC road games. That is something I think that's kind of interesting. You do get a bye in there after Alabama before you go to Columbia to play South Carolina. But I think that's one kind of with how the schedule shakes out, not necessarily in your favor to have to play 3 straight road games in league play. Actually, what is it? They're going to play 4 straight games away from home because they have the Arkansas game that's going to be in Arlington, right? So that I think kind of a scheduling quirk that's is a little interesting for the Aggies. But yeah, this one's not going to be easy, and I completely understand why it's kind of hovering around that top 10. So.
Well, starting with Sam Houston State, that's probably the toughest FCS team that any SEC team plays. Sam Houston State ranked 4th in the preseason FCS poll. Now, I looked at Jeff Sagarin. If the teams had played a year ago, A&M would have been a 22-point favorite at home. So, again, not a game that A&M is going to lose, but just pointing out it's not as easy as probably any of the other FCS games that SEC teams have scheduled. Then Appalachian State, Blake, a team that might be the best team in the Sun Belt, probably a team ranked around the mid-50s from what I'm seeing in the FBS from the computers and power polls that I've seen. Appalachian State is a team that can pull an upset. Michigan found that out long ago. That's not the same team maybe, but that's a tough one that's not a pushover, although with A&M's talent level, that should be a game that they win without too much problem, but it's not a cupcake like you'll see on other schedules.
No, I tell you, these first 3 games, I like comparing I'm trying to think, again, we've done every schedule now to this point, but I'm trying to think. I tell you, Chris, I don't think there's a more intriguing first 3 games. Let's say non-conference wise, because we just talked about who's at South Carolina, who plays Georgia State, then they play Arkansas and Georgia, but that's conference games. Non-conference wise, this is probably the 3-game stretch that's probably more fascinating than maybe any of the others we've seen. Because like you said, you talked about sort of Sam Houston, and A&M is going to be the favorite in that, and we understand. And same with Appalachian State, but even Miami, right? Like Miami is going to be a team that's most people will expect to, have a shot at contending for the Coastal in the ACC. So I think this is. I think A&M is going to win all 3 of them, but I think that there's 2 ways you can look at this. One, is there a potential for a slip up? Maybe not to the level you would expect, but these are not going to be just walks in the parks that maybe you would expect for some SEC teams, playing a non-conference opponent. On the other hand, I think these are 3 games that will absolutely get you ready for, the stretch of games you're going to play after that, which we talked about, the Arkansas, then 3 straight road games at Mississippi State, Alabama, and South Carolina. So in a sense, I almost feel like it sets up perfectly in terms of how they set the schedule up, because these are 3 games that will absolutely, I think, get them prepared for that SEC opener and beyond, for the Aggies. So,
well, the interesting thing about Miami, the range of opinion on the Hurricanes is pretty wide. Although
that's always the case.
Well, you've got a coaching change.
Yeah.
You've got everybody remembers what Miami used to be, but that we haven't seen that program for really 20 years. I'm looking, and most teams, I'm looking at Athlon's, Lindy's, Phil Steele, FPI, SP Plus, Kenneth Massey. Everybody other than Massey's got them at 53. Everybody else has got them from 10 to 20.
I was going to say, yeah, most people in top 20. Yeah.
Yeah. So I, maybe not a wide range of opinion, but maybe one guy that's sort of bringing down the ranking a bit. And I'm sure when Sagarin and some of the other polls I use come out, Miami will edge a little bit lower. But that's interesting to see where Massey's got them. In any case, boy, this is the away from home phase, as you mentioned. Arkansas and Arlington, at Mississippi State, at Alabama, at South Carolina. No real breather in here anywhere, Blake.
No, this is yeah, I mean, like we said, it's very unusual, isn't it, to play 4 straight conference games not inside your own stadium. And like we said, I mean, Arlington, that's going to be what it always is. There's going to be a lot of Arkansas fans, going to be a lot of A&M fans. But that is sort of an unusual thing. And I don't know, I guess we'd have to look back since, they did start playing that game in Arlington and all that. If A&M's had a stretch like this in recent seasons on the schedule where they've maybe played 3, I can't imagine that being the case. I feel like this is just one where maybe it just sets up this way, where you are going from you're basically playing in a month, right? You're away from home for a month.
I don't know that I've ever seen that. I mean, it's not like I've kept a record, but 4 SEC games away from home. No one of them's neutral. I would think that. I've never been to that game at Arlington. I think A&M would have more people in the building, but Arkansas is going to travel pretty well.
Yeah, Arkansas will have a lot of people there. Like maybe Florida, Georgia before playing that game in Jacksonville. Maybe they've had a stretch like that, but I just don't. I can't remember a lot of them, and maybe we're making a big deal out of this, and it's happened a lot. I just don't remember it, but yeah, I feel like it's very unusual. But again, it's not just that the scenario; it's the opponents. And I think that's a bigger part of this, right? Because they're playing Arkansas. They're playing a Mississippi State, which, as we keep talking about with State, it's just a team that A&M's expected to be better, should be better, I think more talented from top to bottom. But you're still talking about a team that's going to play a different style and preparing for Mike Leach and what they're going to do. And we talked about that game last year, right? So, those kind of things, I think you look at that. And then you got to go to Alabama. I mean, look, you're playing in Alabama. All the hype surrounding that with Jimbo and Saban and all this. And then you play a South Carolina team that has shown that they have certainly, made huge strides in one season under Shane Beamer, could be better this year. So yeah, man, this is, it's not easy. This 4-game stretch here. This is one of the tougher 4-game stretches we've seen on any SEC schedule for sure.
Well, I needed to look this up to make sure. They did lose to Mississippi State last year.
Yep.
Also lost to Arkansas. Now, both those were pretty close games, but yeah, I mean, it's just a weird stretch. Then a bye week before South Carolina, which those teams did not play a year ago. Then the back end, which really, other than UMass, which is expected to be one of the worst 2 teams in the FBS, Ole Miss, Florida, LSU at home, and Auburn on the road. I mean, all these are going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, this schedule it's brutal, but it's funny because as we look at these schedules and we start comparing, we're like, all these SEC West teams I think have challenging schedules. And as we talked about, when you looked at Phil Steele's strength of schedule and those kind of thing, I think Georgia's the only team that's kind of the outlier. They have what was projected as, and again, not an easy schedule, but they were in the 50s, and everyone else is mid 30s or higher in terms of schedule. Strength of schedule, I think. So yeah, man, this is and this is why maybe we brought up A&M as much as we have, because now that we look at the schedule as a whole, think about us going through every other SEC team schedule. We'd be like, oh, well, that's a game right there, for this team or that team. We're like, well, we don't know where A&M is going to be at. Now that we see how A&M schedule sets up, maybe we were kind of, justified in making those comments just about, well, this may be one of those games you can get if you're team A or team B going up against A&M in this spot, because now that you see how the schedule unfolds, it's something. But at least, and we talk about kind of navigating that 4-game stretch there away from home. But now, you get an Ole Miss at home that you feel like you'll be the favorite in. Florida, same situation. Auburn, as we've talked about, expectations for Auburn are not high necessarily. I think most
depending
people,
on who you ask.
Well, again, as we've said,
the boosters have expectations there.
There are 4 teams as we've grouped them together. We've talked about Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, that we have no idea what to make of in terms of what order that finish is going to be maybe in the West. We seem to think Alabama, A&M Arkansas will be your top 3, but there's no guarantees that's going to be the case either. But it's trying to figure out those 4 teams specifically, and that's why I think when you look at this for Texas A&M, getting Ole Miss, getting Auburn on the road, we have no idea where Auburn's going to be at that point. They could have completely bottomed out, or maybe they have just completely exceeded expectations. And then LSU, which such a wide range of where these teams are picked, especially Auburn and LSU. I think those are the 2 teams I've seen the widest range on in preseason publications of any other teams in the SEC. I think Auburn and LSU are the 2 that I've seen the widest range on. So I think that, when you look at it that way, getting a lot of these games at home, a huge boost to end the season, gives you some momentum, but it's just, where are you going to be at this point in the schedule, given what you've already played? So,
well, you view the schedule through the lens of the team playing it, right? A&M is going to be favored in more of these games than not.
Yeah.
But like, if you were a lower third SEC team, let's say Vanderbilt, Missouri, South Carolina, whoever you want to put in that group, you look at that schedule and you're like, man, there is one built-in win on this schedule, and that's it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's how you judge them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a brutally tough schedule. I think that LSU game will be fascinating to see where both programs are at that time.
Yeah.
The Auburn game you mentioned at Auburn, is Auburn making an unexpected run at a New Year's Day bowl game?
Or is the defensive coordinator the head coach? Yeah.
Right. I mean, Florida, again, I say I'd rather face the Gators earlier than later in the season because of the coaching change. Ole Miss is a fascinating game. I mean, I just think that, man, if you're just picking one team to watch, just interesting week after week.
Yeah.
And you can only watch one team next year. Based on this schedule, I don't know. I don't know if A&M would be the number 1 team in the country I'd want to watch under those circumstances, but they'd be in that very, very small handful of teams you discuss.
If we ranked schedules by entertainment value, I think this would be number 1.
Yeah. Because and you've got Alabama in the middle of it, which is going to be the most talked about game of the college football season, perhaps.
That's why I think this would be number 1. We're recency bias because this is the one we're doing, but remembering all the others we've done and just kind of talking about the different trends and different schedules, I think this is probably gonna get you most bang for your buck for this one in terms of entertainment value. Because like we said, it's an SEC West team, it's a preseason top 10 team. But it's a team that's playing a lot of other teams that, a strong Appalachian State team, a Miami team that could, boom or bust depending on which way it goes. 4-game stretch, not at Kyle Field. So, yeah, I think add all that up, it's a combination for high entertainment. If you're an A&M fan, you want it to be entertaining, but you want it to be entertaining in terms of, you winning every game. But I think that will be challenging to do with the schedule.
Well, you know what makes that Alabama game a little bit more interesting is A&M last year lost the 2 games heading into Bama.
Right.
And it didn't matter.
Was it Mississippi State and who was the other one?
And I think Arkansas. Yes, Arkansas.
Yeah. Yeah. So wild. We'll see. Is this the year A&M breaks through? Gonna have a tough road to do it. But hey, if you do break through and you come through this schedule unscathed or with only 1 loss, you will have earned your spot. That's for sure.
No doubt. Although A&M would argue that happened a couple years back and wasn't given to them. So
true.
In any case, yeah, a very interesting season ahead in the SEC. This wraps up our preview of SEC football schedules. We've got basketball content coming next week. We've got all kinds of football content coming. We're going to have something pretty much every day, Monday through Friday, and maybe even some bonus stuff on the weekends, Blake.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much going to be getting multiple videos a day for 7 days a week, probably until I don't know when. Like at this point, because the stuff we have lined up, we've pretty much got football stuff
until we drop dead.
Got football stuff going up daily. We're gonna have a basketball countdown that I think will be fun. So yeah, you just look, if you want SEC coverage, just hit the subscribe button, because we're going to have, if not one, multiple things going up probably 7 days a week for the next, I don't know, 9 months or more, I guess. So, yeah.
There's no off season in the SEC
No.
anymore.
No.
With baseball, with draft season, with fall camp. I mean, really, it's the off season is maybe the week before media day.
Yep. So hit subscribe.
All right. Thanks for watching. And again, we'll see you again very soon.